I'm Marissa Norcross.
And I'm Dave Freund, and this is The Next Page. Marissa, how are you? This is a beautiful sunny day.
I know. I feel like we've just been recording on really beautiful days lately.
We have.
But I think the reality is we have actually just been having a lot of beautiful days.
We have.
It's crazy. Like, I was just talking to someone else about this, that I need to challenge my current expectation for summer because I keep thinking that we're further into summer than we really are. And I'm sure some of that is thrown off by the school year. But the day we're recording right now, it's July 1st. And I need to rewind because I feel like I'm too far ahead into summer because the weather has been so great and because my kids have been home. But in reality, if my daughter had been in school last week, would have been like her last day would have been at the end of last week, I think. So,
summer has just begun.
Yeah. I feel like I just gained some time here and it has been so beautiful. The forecast looks beautiful. So, even though it's been a crazy first half of the year, I don't know. I'm reinvigorated by
that is awesome.
All this weather.
Well, it has been a crazy first half of the year, and the second half of the year is going to be wonderful.
Yeah, we can go with that.
It is. It's going to be wonderful because it's what we think it really is. You know? So we can look back at the first half of the year and say, oh, or we can look back at the first half of the year and say, well, that was quite a challenge, and we were more than successful going through that first half of the year.
Yeah. This is our another chance here in 2020.
Exactly. So 2020 is going to end wonderfully. Because as we get toward the end of the year, it's the most wonderful. I know I won't go down there.
Yeah, we
People
know.
are going to say, can he bring that up in every podcast? Yeah, I might. I probably could, but I won't. But, even when we talk about how great the weather was, when I was planning for my vacation, which was last week, the forecast was terrible. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to rain almost every day, and it didn't.
You had beautiful weather.
Bluebird skies, and in my post, we find out that cost me some things. But anyways, we can talk about that later. But it was wonderful weather. I think the farmers might be getting really concerned because the corn is not growing. I can tell. Last evening we had about 3/4 of an inch of rain, so that's going to help. So we do need a little bit of rain so that we appreciate the sunshine, but we're going to appreciate the sunshine anyways because it is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So I was on vacation.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say it wasn't good because it was. It was great. It was an amazing week. Spent time with my family at a camp that we rented. But I noticed that every day I just had these times when something was off. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And I don't want to use the word depressed because that's a serious word. It wasn't depressed. It was just I felt down. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't figure out what was up. And so every day, and again, it was a wonderful time. Although I did have one morning that was, I didn't even tell you about this. So I was finally supposed to get the old boat in the water and take her out to where the family was. And so I got up and on the way to the boat launch, I start having a migraine.
Oh, no.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not a problem. Take your meds. After your vision improves, it'll only be a dull headache. So I get the boat in the water. I start it up and I cannot keep it running for anything. Fine. Pull the boat out. So my son Tim's with me. So I call him back. I said, back the trailer back in the water. I'm not even going to mess with this, And it was something I did wrong. I completely adjusted the carburetor wrong, and I've already since corrected that problem. But so we get in the car, and he goes, would you like me to drive home because of your headache? I said, yeah, that would be helpful. He goes, and by the way, your passenger front door window won't go up. It's like, no. And it was just so. And the only reason why that's somewhat humorous is that a year ago in the fall, or last fall, when I was having problems with my boat, when I got home from the lake, I was backing the trailer up the driveway and I couldn't roll up my driver's side window because it broke. So I had to, and what they are is, my Ford Expeditions have a weak spot, and it is the window regulators in the front windows. It's normal. I've had enough of these trucks to know, and it was just like, I can't believe this. But you know what? The good news was I made a phone call. Dave Pirro Ford had the part. They said, if you can get it here soon, we'll fix it today. See there? So it was bad, but it ended up good. It's all how you look at it. So back to my original thing. You're like, Dave, you're going way off track, and you've already consumed almost 6 minutes of the podcast. So upon reflection, I looked at what could have been causing my problem, my anxiousness, my feeling out of sorts, my feeling down. Was it the fact that I had 9 grandchildren, 8 and under, around me most of the week? Yeah, that could contribute to some of it, but not much, because the kids were amazing. They really so well behaved. We had a birthday party for 2 of them. It was amazing. Could it have been the fact that the boat wasn't running? Yes, that was. Could it have been the fact that fishing was lousy? And fishing was lousy because the weather was amazing. So bluebird skies are not good for fishing. And the 2 big fish that I hooked literally shook their heads and spit the hooks like right next to the boat, kind of thing. But that wasn't it either. It was this. I stopped my daily routines. And I'm serious. People are like, what? You're nuts. No, because as soon as I started my life back up, the feeling kind of went away. And I realized that every day I have certain routines that I start my day with. And I didn't do that. And that was the problem. Now, I know there are folks that are going to think I'm nuts. But I'm serious. Because I have almost every day of the year, I get up at the same time. I have the same routine. I have some quiet time, some devotion time, some prayer time. I reflect on my day that was before. I plan the day that's ahead. I go through my daily affirmations, which remind me how blessed I am. And I didn't have that. So every morning it was like, okay, what do we do next? And people will say, well, do you really want to plan vacation? Well, let me tell you what's worse than that. Have you ever, and maybe you've never experienced this, Marissa, but have you ever been with a group of people and you try to figure out what you're going to do for the day? So what are we doing today? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And you waste
the whole day.
And the whole day. And I remember, and I don't think any of my cousins, I have 2 cousins that used to visit. I don't think either of them listen to the podcast. Shame on them. But anyway. No, seriously, I know they don't, but they used to come visit in the summer, and we would sit at a camp and literally waste a whole morning trying to figure out what to do, to the point that I'd get so frustrated, I'd just say, I'm just going to go fishing. Bye. So think about that anxiety, that stress level. So not knowing what you're going to do creates stress. When even if it's all, the plan is this, we're going to have breakfast and then we're going to do nothing but sit around the water, go swimming, whatever. At least there's a plan.
Right.
And I think the other thing too was that mentally, my routine sets my mind up mentally and my emotions up emotionally for the day. And when that's missing, you're just not, it was a great time, but it wasn't an amazing, awesome time, which it could have been. And had I done that, nobody in my family would have noticed. Actually, they probably would have noticed that maybe, Dad wasn't quite as miserable as he normally is. So I wonder what that was from. Okay. So I really think that it would have, that's the lesson learned, that I will never, because this has happened routinely with my vacations. And I think I mentioned to you that the only times when I didn't sense that, when I was on vacation, I used to think it was, okay, I'm a workaholic. No, that's not it. I mean, I love work, but I'm not a workaholic. When I go on cruises, which I also mentioned to you, I'm not sure I'm going to do, at least anytime soon. Because there's just way too many things you can catch on a cruise ship. But when I would go on a cruise, everything is really structured for you. And then I was okay. Yeah. Because, for instance, okay, we would have a day planned to be in a port. We would already decide what we're going to do that day, a day ahead. Or if you're at sea, you're at sea. But when you're just sitting on vacation and you're just, oh, I'm going to do nothing. Wrong. Plan to schedule or plan the time when you're going to do nothing. So does this make any sense to you?
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of us are feeling this perpetual lack of structure right now. Anyone who has kids that were suddenly home from school in March, anyone who is typically a in-office employee who is now a remote employee. I mean, we've all been a little jumbled up lately. And some of us are probably in better shape than others. But I mean, at first when I read your post, I was kind of like, oh, what a bummer. But then I realized, like this is something that I think a lot of people are probably have struggled with, but not only like on vacation and possibly not getting the most enjoyment out of their vacation because their routines have been off. But I mean, think about myself. I was always a very structured person. And then I had kids. And and then you really like after reading your post, I reflected on this. I'm like, I have been feeling this a lot lately just because of the change in situation at home. But it reminded me, I'm like, I really need to get back into some of that because it allows you to like reclaim some of your mental capacity, like the mental fortitude you need to manage said children. But it takes some of the stress, and like you said, it like sets up your body and your mind and your attitude for the rest of the day. And I think sometimes when we think about routines or like the word routine, it sounds very fussy, like, okay, and 5, 6, 7, 8, like a dance routine, but it's really, it doesn't have to be like a very rigid routine. It doesn't have to be a 15-step process. And it really is just about like that structure, and it can look different for everyone. And it's going to look different depending on our personality types, depending on our values, depending on what's important to us, depending on how much time we can devote to it. But I think like the reflection piece, just like you said, you didn't realize it in the moment. It was when you were reflecting. Right. If we all could sit back and do that, we can kind of find like, okay, how can I set up my day? And maybe it's something for you. I know it's the morning that you have for your routine. Right. And we all have routines throughout the entire day, but that's like your big one that sets you up for success. For some people, it might be the night before. Right. Like really getting or, laying out outfits, packing your lunch, like all of those things are routines. Yes. And I think they're just, from an efficiency standpoint, they're important. Correct. But from a stress standpoint, they're important. But I think there's a lot of really good stuff in a routine. Yes. And, so you touched on the fact of my reflection. Mm-hmm. So had I done my reflection each morning, or let's say I did it every other morning, I would have noticed a pattern. Mm-hmm. So even if I would have dropped out some other routines, let's say I didn't do my daily affirmations, let's say I just did the reflection, it would have told me something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, what's wrong? What's different? I could have corrected it like 2 days in. Yep. But I just I'm on vacation. I'm not going to mess with this now. Mm-hmm. And what, when we say routine, we're not, like you said, it's not like a dance step, 1 through 15 steps. It could simply be planning for, okay, this is what I'm going to do first thing in the morning, whatever. And my point is, don't mess up a simple routine that you're already doing just because you're on vacation. My morning routine at the longest is 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. So that's, and so I typically start that a little after 6. So it's not, because I'm done by 7 with that in the morning. So it's not like I'm getting up at, dark 100. Right. Although in the wintertime it's pretty dark. But anyways, now the sun's been long before I start that. Okay, so so if I do that, it might be something like, okay, so I'm planning my day.
All right. Well, you know what? I think we're going to spend some time down at the beach, playing with the kids. And you know what? If when they take a nap, that would be a good time for me to do this or this or this. I do need to be there to help with the kids. And I think I was a help. I probably wasn't as much of a help as I could have been. But anyways, because I just know I'm not as sensitive to where I should be when I should be with little ones. But you plan options. If it rains, so here's one. Okay, so we're gonna plan on eating on the deck. The place that we rented had this huge, beautiful, huge deck. So what do we do if it rains? Well, we found a solution, because there was one evening in 7 when it rained at dinner time. Which, what a blessing, because it was supposed to rain every day. But if you just think, okay, what's my contingency if it rains? Well, we've got these tables, they're here, we're good to go. Okay, great. Move on. Stress level gone. Now it worked, but it would have been much better had we thought about it ahead of time. Mm-hmm. There wouldn't have been that stress factor.
Well, and you take it by going through that intentionally and just saying, okay, like if it's going to rain at dinner time, here's what we're going to do.
Right.
Your brain can stop thinking about it. So it's not like in the back of your head saying, hey, David, don't forget, you got to make a decision about what you're going to do if it rains at dinner time.
Exactly.
And then 10 minutes later, hey, what are you going to do if it rains at dinner time? What do you think we should do if it rains at dinner time? Instead, it's like, hey, if it rains at dinner time, we're taking this party indoors. And here's where everyone's going to sit, and here's where we're going to put the food. Done, brain over with. Brain
relaxes again.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that, my wife and my daughter-in-laws and my sons and son-in-law, they did an amazing job of planning everything out. Like, the meals were all planned out. The lunches, the dinners, everything was just, they did it really, really well. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to make it sound like we just haphazardly went somewhere for a week and had no idea what was happening. No, they actually had contingencies of what can we do if this and that. Mm-hmm. But there were things that would have been stresses for me that I could have just thought through. Mm-hmm. And, so we've already talked about the fact that routines reduce our stress. And I just thought, well, is it me? And I did a little bit of research and found that no, it's a proven fact that we as human beings love our routine. Mm-hmm. We love the structure that it gives our lives. We don't like it when our routines are upset. And so that's why we, thinking through our routine. So, maybe our routine on a vacation is different, but we should still have that routine. Mm-hmm. Some people also think that, well, I don't have time for it. Well, you've already done a pretty good job of explaining that we save time by having a plan. Mm-hmm. And we can make the most use of the time that we have. One of the things that I thought too was great is prioritization, where if we can plan ahead, if we can build routines into our life, we can build into our life times for things that are important or that connect with our values. One of the things I mentioned to you before we started recording was, for couples, a date night. And people are going to say, I don't have time. We don't have money for date nights. Yes, you do. Because we're not talking about going to a fancy restaurant once a week. You had talked in the past about things that you and Derek had done in the evenings. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the point.
Card game.
What? Card game.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that the two of you enjoy doing, the point is it's a connection time between the two of you. Mm-hmm. And so what might we need to do? Well, we might need to make sure that we put the kids down by this time so that we can do that. Great. Once the kids get a little bit older and can be home for an hour by themselves, you go for a walk, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. You can, and some other folks, I used to hear people say, well, we'd love to go out, but we don't know any good babysitters. We don't have anybody we trust. Do you have another couple that has kids that you trust? Mm-hmm. You just plan. Once you schedule the routine of we're going to do this twice a month or whatever it might be, well, how about 1 week you watch their kids and then the next week they watch yours?
Right.
You just got to be creative. Mm-hmm. That's the point there. And prioritize the things that matter to you. I sent you some notes of stuff that I found. Did any of those things jump out at you? Of course not. You probably didn't. I'd sent it so late, you probably didn't have time to even see it. But
one of the ones I really liked was about building momentum and
yes.
and how, and I get it. Like trying to think about, because I mean, I'm right there. Like, this is where I am right now. I'm trying to find new routines for my family and for myself and for my kids. And it can be a lot to consider. Okay, like, what needs to change and what does my routine look like? Like, that part can be, that's where the work comes in, right? That's the investment, is thinking about the routine and what it looks like, and then the execution of it. But once it becomes second, I mean, all of, like, our lives are just all a bunch of routines. I just know that my routine, my current routine of waking up when my baby starts crying and then, you know, sitting on the couch while she plays on the floor and like trying to wake up is not like that's not serving me. Like, that's not a good routine, but that's my routine. So I do have, we all have these routines.
We all have a routine.
So it's like finding the routines that aren't working for you and changing them into routines that are working for you will help you build that momentum. And like, I think all of us can do that. And then you find that, like, okay, now that like my mornings are running so smooth, like, let's work on the evening routine, or like, it just kind of gets you, like, you're set up for success. Like, you're recognizing that if you're reflecting on your days, you're saying like, wow, this like routine is like really helping me have great days. You just build on that, and things, you know, you feel better. You're more efficient. You've prioritized what's important. There's less stress. I mean, this is what we all do for our kids, right? Like, when you have a baby, you have a bedtime routine to help them wind down and go to sleep, and just sleep train them, and then they go to school and they have so much structure in their days. And we talk about how important it is for kids to have structure, and kids love structure, even though they tell you they don't love structure. They do love structure. I mean, this is all stuff we know, but then when we're like, oh, but yeah, like, I don't need that. Like,
exactly.
I needed it when I was a kid, but like, I don't need it now. And that's
I'm
so
beyond
false.
that now.
Right. It's like, I think now more than ever. I mean, if you look at people that your mentors or people that you think are successful in one thing or another, like my mom talks about this all the time. She's like, one of her key values is exercising for self-care. And she said, when you guys were kids, I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get my workout in 6 days a week. And she's like, I needed that. Like, if I was going to be, you know, mom and wife and employee, and she's like, that's what I had to do for myself. And now that we're older, I mean, now it's more like a 6 or 6:30 thing. But when I look at her and I think, wow, my mom has been really successful at taking care of herself and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. How can I do that? Well, I have to have the routine. And I think we all have that opportunity to look at those that we look up to and those that are mentors to us and see what they're doing.
You know, one of the things that I realized was, so when I started working from home, I lost my 30-minute commute to work. Mm-hmm. What I also lost was my 30 minutes in the morning to listen to thought leaders. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I can kill two birds with one stone. So now I can get up and go outside and go for a walk for 30 minutes, get some exercise, put my AirPods in so that I can listen to the thought leader. So I'm actually so I reclaimed my learning opportunity, but also I'm taking care of the health piece. Mm-hmm. And I'm oxygenating my brain by getting outside and breathing the fresh air first thing in the morning. Mm-hmm. So you build this in, and it was interesting that, you know, when I wasn't doing it, I missed it.
Yeah.
So the question was, well, why wasn't I doing it? I was on vacation. No, just get up and walk down the street. Who cares? Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about mentors. So I was thinking about this earlier, that there were 5 things that John Maxwell says he has done every day since he was 17, and he's 73. He reads, he writes, he asks questions, he reflects, and he files his notes. The compounding factor of doing those things every day since he was 17 is amazing. Mm-hmm. And so that routine, so even when he's on vacation, he writes. and he reads, and he asks questions, and he reflects, and he puts it in a format that he can find. So as I was going through this, I thought, there's some of these things I'm doing really well and one that I'm doing horrible at, and that is filing.
Mm-hmm.
Where am I, I'm putting these ideas somewhere, but can I find them? Some are great, so maybe at some point you need to ask me, how you doing on that filing thing? And I heard him do a teaching not long ago where he said, I said to my administrative assistant, go pull that teaching I did. I don't know when I did it, but I did it on this topic. And I'm thinking, I have done so many teachings in the last 4 years. I don't know where all the materials are. I can find them because most of them have a computer file. But man, I need a better system.
Mm-hmm.
So that came out of a reflection piece. So the key here is you got to work on maintaining routines are going to build a lower stress level in your life. Your mental health will be better. You're going to find time to relax. And one of the ones you touched on was the danger of routines could be if we're stuck in things that don't work or might even become harmful to us. What is that routine that's not healthy that you're doing? Change it. I discovered one where if I couldn't sleep, I would get up and I'd go and I'd lay on the sofa. And it got to the point where I thought, I'll just start out on the sofa. Well, that's a dangerous routine.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I still can't sleep, well, I'll get something to eat. And then I realized how much junk I was eating late at night while, watching a fishing video type of thing. Like, whoa, fix that. Change that. Because it became a habit that was a routine but wasn't a good one. So, and then the point was, so how do we avoid the dangers of a bad routine? Reflection on a regular basis. Evaluate your routines frequently and just pick the best ones. And your life will get better. So no more vacations without routines.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. I promise.
Yeah. Sometimes we think that we need the break from it, but really it has the opposite effect.
Exactly. It has the opposite effect because it's not the routine that's tiring us out or stressing us out. It's everything else that's in between that.
Mm-hmm.
And we may actually find that the stress is because we're not able to accomplish the things we want to accomplish. And that creates stress for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope everybody goes on vacation, but I hope that there are some things that are helping them be who they are that they continue to do even when they're on.
Yep.
So you want to know what we're talking about next week?
Sure.
The danger of being too critical. That hit me when I was walking this morning. So
that was like a really productive walk. Then you walked, you listened to a podcast, and you thought of your next
And I
topic.
thought of something that I need to write, and I wrote on. So I grabbed my phone and I went to my Evernote app and I wrote "write about being critical."
Look at that.
All right.
Alrighty.
Anything special you want to share with us? Anything exciting happening?
Well, let's see. This weekend is the 4th of July, even though we talked about that last week's episode by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
And that will be our 5-year wedding anniversary.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this weekend we'll celebrate. It'll be different. It was, it's not Turks and Caicos like we had planned.
But you know what? We're all going to celebrate as a nation. We're going to celebrate with you.
Yes.
There are going to be fireworks and parades and bands. And if people say, what's this all about? Derek and Marissa's anniversary.
Yes. Something like that.
And we talked about this last year, but my dear friends that rescued me from having my first ever 3rd of July. Well, that was the first ever in many, many years, missing the lighting of the lake on Otisco Lake. Would you believe that last Sunday, the husband sent me a text message and said, we just want to make sure you know that on the 3rd, we'd like you and your family to join us on the boat again.
Oh, good. I was hoping
those are
you'd
good
say
friends.
So, I am happy for you. That's great.
Yeah. So hopefully that will all work out, weather permitting anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, and I hope you have a wonderful anniversary, even though I probably said that last week.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm Dave Freund.
I'm Marissa Norcross.
And this was the next page.